Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are doing a recap and review of Married at First Sight season 11 episode 11. Let's talk about sex, baby. So I just want to kind of give you a heads up. If you kind of see like a reddish tone in any of the scenes, there was a reflection going on that I tried to stop, but I just wanted to put that disclaimer in there so nothing looks weird with them exactly. It's just something with my screen on my end. So let's jump into this video. So the first couple we're going to talk about today is Karen and Miles. And they started off the episode with Miles having a random question for Karen, which was, "Do you trust me?" And she said, "Well, to an extent. I don't think you mean me any harm or that you will hurt me, but I just can't trust you with my heart." And look, granted, I get it. It's early, it's soon, but it's also an accelerated process. I mean, I think there should be some movement and I mean, granted, I'm seeing little baby steps with her, but yeah, it's taking her some time. So Dr. Viviana comes over and visit them to have a sit down. And it was interesting that she said to them, "Do you guys feel married?" And instantly Karen was like, "No." It takes time to build a bond. She's just not there yet. I mean, she's married at first sight, but she doesn't feel married. Miles is like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely all in. I didn't expect to feel the way that I do about Karen." And honestly, he's been putting it all on the table. I mean, he's definitely have been stepping up to the plate with everything from making sure she's comfortable, fixing her car, cooking. I mean, she does some cooking too, because remember the whole red snapper and potatoes. Yeah, but I mean, they brought up the subject about sex. She don't even want to talk about that right now. And again, because her family is so conservative, and she says closeness is hard, and that, I just want to take my time and I always move at a slow pace. But it's interesting that Dr. V said, "Hey, I got a suggestion for you guys. Why don't you take sex off the table?" And of course, her face lit up like a Christmas tree, because that's definitely going in the direction that she wants to go into. And Miles, I mean, granted, a part of him is probably like, but he's not, I don't think he's feeling that. So they decided to go to this Body Be Fit workout center. And Miles was saying that he, wanted to keep up with his wife, especially with the racing conversation that they had in Mexico. And he definitely tried to hang in there. I mean, when he started off, he was on struggle. But he was like, "I'm not going to let Karen beat me. I'm not going to let Karen beat me." And he toughened it out and he hung in there. So they had a little sit down conversation. And, she was saying that she liked the fact that he can take a joke and how he's competitive and everything. But I guess they're going to get there. It's baby steps with her, and he's going at her pace. So there was the other question that she put on the table in regards to, they were talking about pet names. And if I had a pet name, what would you call me? And Miles was like, "I call you Momo, I call you Shorty, I call you Love, I even called you Head." And she was like, "You better not call me Head." But he asked, "What is your pet name for me?" And she was like, "Well, I'm not a pet name person." Okay. And then they talked about what makes you insecure. That's what Karen said, and he was like, "I just worry sometimes I was never good enough." And, the whole thing with him going through clinical depression and the things he had to deal with his life, that was some things. And then he brought up the age question with her, why is age a problem? And she was saying, "Well, I really, that's a big thing for me for maturity purposes." And I'm like, "Okay, maturity is not about age. It's a mindset." And she stated that with him, he's very articulate and can, really handle himself, and especially how he talk all about his feelings and emotions. And he said, yeah, that's what I'm about. I mean, this is who I am. And he asked her what was the hardest thing to change. And she said to change his perception of her, because she doesn't want him to misinterpret that by her not willing to show some of the things that he's expecting because she's moving so slow. He didn't want him to have that perception of her. So we'll see what happens with these two as time go along. So let's move into Amelia and Bennett, one of our top favorite couples. And her aunt called her on video chat to actually meet her new husband, Bennett. And she was so excited about it. She was like, oh, he's everything that I pictured him to be. And Amelia was like, yeah, he's on my level. And Bennett is like, I'm enjoying to get to know her. And the question came up once again about him moving, or her moving. And the aunt says, hey, Bennett, she's getting ready to move pretty soon. She might be moving to Timbuktu. How do you feel about that? And of course, he's like, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So they did a little exercise by talking about affirmations and revelations. And I mean, I love this between those two. I wish all of the couples maybe should have done this, but they gave this to them. And he was like, it's a joy sharing my life with you. And what she enjoyed is to the perspective that he has on life. And then they talked about their emotions. And Bennett is like, I like how open and honest we are. And Amelia is like, I like how we get through the tough things. And the favorite things about your mind is your empathy. And I mean, it's just gushing with needs, desires. And they even talked about sex with each other. The fact that they're going to continue to be open about her needs. He's going to be communicating what his desires are. And I just really, really appreciate the moment that they have. I mean, I love these two, not only because of the fact that they're comfortable in their own skin and their own lifestyles, no matter what anybody else thinks. They live life on their own accord. So, I mean, I have no issues with them at this point. So Bennett did have a sit-down conversation, however, with Henry in regards to the fact that he just found out that Amelia is probably going to know where she's going to be assigned for her residency in about another week or so. And, Henry was shocked at that soon. Now, I don't know, because this is right at the beginning of the whole pandemic. So I'm wondering, I'm looking forward to seeing, because I think next week would be the quarantine episode of the first one. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to go down, especially with her and also with Olivia, because she's a nurse practitioner. So, we kind of got a look of that with Jessica and Austin right at the end of season 10, because it was right around that time period on Couples Cam. But we'll see what's going to happen. But I think Bennett, he'll take it in stride. All right, let's talk about our next sexy couple. And this one, my favorite, Amani and Woody. So they were in the park and they had a series of questions that they were taking turns on asking each other. And Woody asked a question, what is the one thing that turned you on? And did she ask him that question? But that was the question, and he was saying that my truth is being a listening ear. See, and that's what I like about them. They talk about deep conversations. They also had a question where Amani asked, what turns you on? And she said doing the little things like he did with her breakfast tacos. And you remember just adding the cheese just right. Those types of things is just simply awesome. And then it was so cute. She was like, you want to kiss me? He was like, yeah. And she was like, just do it. I love these two. And so they talked about sexual positions, and he was like from the side because you can experience the entire body. And then she also said that her favorite, even though she hesitated, was like having her legs on his shoulders because he can really hit some specific areas. And she was kind of embarrassed about that, but you know what? That's what you need to know from your partner. You need to know what exactly their needs are in the bedroom, out the bedroom, wherever you are. So I really appreciate the fact that they had that conversation, even though she was kind of squeamish about it. So Amani asked him, when was at what point that you have chosen to give up on something? And he was like, you know what, I just went to a deep place. And she was like, oh, okay, well, tell me about it. Tell me about, what you're thinking. And he said, it was the relationship with his father. And that, of course, he went to jail when he was 9. And then he was in there, obviously, for 7 years. And after 7 years later, he got out. He's almost a grown man. And there's a lot of things that were said and done. And yeah, he's gotten closure. He went through counseling to deal with those. And I honestly think that that's impressive on his part because you need to fix those things. And he even said, if I didn't go to counseling and go through those things, I don't think I could be the man that I need to be to you as a husband. You are absolutely correct. And that's maturity right there. I really like that. But Amani was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. You got 2 new dads. Yes, he do. And yeah, I love this couple. I like the fact that they can be open and honest with each other. And the fact that they can be very receptive to each other's honesty. That's the thing. I mean, besides the whole thing with the conversation about the dog, which we'll get to that point. The thing is with these two is that they don't go into a standoff like what we see in other couples. And they respect each other's feelings. And the fact of the matter, you can tell that there is a deep connection with them. They're comfortable with each other. I am so loving this couple. So let's get into that conversation. They were getting ready for bedtime. And they had this conversation about a dog. And she wants a dog. He does not. He does not like dogs for whatever reason. And he was like, the only way we'll get a dog is if we get the baby too. And the dog and the baby can grow together. And I'm like, don't you know that's much more work? To raise a kid and a baby dog at the same time? I don't know what age the dog would be. But she was like, how are we going to raise a baby and a dog at the same time? I mean, it would be less work if we get the dog first. And he was like, we ain't getting no dog. And she was like, well, what you going to do if I bring a dog in? He was like, I'm going to put it outside. And she like, you ain't going to put my dog outside. Now, even though this was a little disagreement, it didn't turn into something ugly with these two. Because sometimes when people get in their feelings about stuff, it can be a standoff. Oh, I'm going to get my dog. No, you're not. Yes, I am. They didn't make it like that, And even he said, you won't even like dogs like that. Why are you even talking about getting a dog? And so I don't know if she was just trying to say, I'm showing my independence here. If I say I want a dog, I'm going to get one. But sometimes you got to pick your battles. And I mean, granted, they took it lightly. They got through it. And of course, he rolled over on the other side of the bed and gave her a hug. So it was fine. They got through that. So then they did a little game that they played. And I thought this game was really cool. Definitely a little fun. And so he said, I think the card that she pulled is to get him a massage. And she gave him a massage. He was like, my eyes are rolling in the back of my head. Woody is a comedian. He is so funny. But they're enjoying, and not only performing the task, but they're enjoying it with each other. It's not like, okay, this is something I got to do in front of the cameras. They're actually enjoying this project that they're doing. So then there was the next question, or he pulled a card and it says that he had to do a dance for her. And he got up there trying to do his thing and not do too much. Because, I mean, I've seen videos where he danced. He ain't too bad. But, you know, of course, this is Lifetime, so he can only do so much. And then he ended up kissing her on her neck. I thought that was cute. But then they also did a dance together, and I thought that was cute as well. So then they pulled another card, and you know, I mean, they just really enjoyed the activity that they were doing, you know, and I really like this with these two. They're definitely progressing in this experiment. And you guys tell me what you think. I mean, what are you rating this couple? I forgot to rate the other two. But with Amelia and Bennett, I give them a 10. I give Woody and Amani a 10. And then this is the scene that was so funny where he had to lick syrup off of her and he put chocolate syrup on her neck. And you can tell she's really enjoying it and he's enjoying licking it off of her. So they don't mind being creative either, which I like that with these two. You know, the way they look at each other, the way they communicate with each other. He feels vulnerable with her to tell her different things. She doesn't judge him. You know, they have their little hiccups about dogs and things like that, but it's nothing big and they get through it. So they can laugh together, they can cry together, they can talk deep stuff. I really, really love this couple. They're definitely doing an excellent job. And I was a Woody fan from day one. I didn't care what the producers made him look like in the first episode or what he made himself look like, however you want to describe it. But I'm like, nah, I'm going to give him a chance. Because a lot of them wrote Mr. Woody off. But Mr. Woody is definitely showing people what married Woody can be, you know. So y'all keep it up. I'm looking forward to seeing more of Woody and Amani. So our next couple we're going to talk about is Henry and Christina, and Dr. V, I should say Dr. Viviana, comes over and decide to have some conversation with them. And, you know, she was like, how's things been since you guys been married? And Christina was like, this is definitely, there's definitely something there. One moment you think Christina has a connection with him, and the next moment it's like, oh my God, really? She's sending mixed signals, but let's keep it moving. So Henry was like, he sometimes feel overwhelmed and he folds up. He's not as emotional as she is, and you know, he tried to defend his statement when calling her emotional because obviously he didn't want her to feel offended. And he was like, you know, I just don't express my feelings. And Dr. Viviana said, well, just because you don't express them don't mean you can't show how you feel, you know. And there's ways to do that non-verbally. He doesn't have to say it. He can do it in his actions too, which I do agree with Dr. V on that. Henry was like, you know, I dated here and there, and, you know, practicing affection is just something that I haven't become used to. And I'm like, well, what did you do in the dating, the people that you dated? What did you do? You know, I mean, but obviously this is why he's here. She was saying, I mean, Christina was like, you know, she can be patient, but right now we're friends that are married. And I'm like, friends that are married? And Dr. Viviana said the same thing. You know, the friend zone is a real thing. You got to build intimacy if you're in a marriage. And I agree with that. I mean, if you want to be friends, fine. But it's not a marriage if you're going to keep each other in the friend zone. And Christina was like, look, the ball is in his court. I'm used to not waiting this long. And with Henry, he says sex is a bigger deal to him. It's something that's meaningful. And I don't think Christina means she just want to have casual sex with him. She just want to at least build to get to that point. And he's just not there. You know, it's just interesting how I'm wondering where he stands in regards to if he even thought about having sex or getting into intimacy with Christina. Probably not. So, you know, I mean, she was like, she liked the fact that you know, it's a big deal to him, and that, I mean, Christina likes that about him. So I don't think Dr. V got deep with them, you know. But again, she's a sex therapist. So they had to practice what Dr. V gave them in regards to question and answers. And because they wanted to do it blindfolded, I think this is to help Henry be able, because he has a problem with dealing with eye contact. So it helped him be able to answer questions without actually looking at somebody directly. So, some of the questions that was asked was, what is something that you think that you can do better at? And Henry was like, I need to open up and not fester on things, and you know, I just need to be able to communicate more. And I'm like, okay, we're making headway. At least he recognizes it. And then he says that when he's very critical of himself, because when he was heavy, he had lost a lot of weight, and that a lot of his friends say that he still see himself this way, which is why he's not as confident. Now, to me, this is where Christina should have took the time to support him now, because he was vulnerable enough to talk about that and how he feel about the weight loss just as much as she was telling him about her situation with ADD. But what did she do? She tell him, I understand that there's a lot of insecurities, and I just think you need to get over it because it is troubling, and I can help you with that. And I'm like, that's the worst thing you can tell somebody, is just to get over it when they're in the middle of something. A lot of things are just something you just can't just get over. It takes healing to get through some things. But for her to be that insensitive with that statement, when at a time he supported you, when you told him your situation about not taking your medicine, really? Okay, let's move on. So the questions were now flipped to her. How do you know that you in love? And she was like, oh, I just know a switch goes off and then there's a feeling. And I'm like, okay, that could be infatuation. You just never know. Because you grow in love. You don't fall in love. Anywho, so he also asked her, what is one of your biggest deal breakers? And she said the lack of confidence. And what did she want to say that for? Because Henry took that some kind of way. He was like, oh my God, no, she didn't. And I'm like, yes, she did. So that definitely stuck in his craw. So again, during that conversation that Henry had with Bennett, Henry brought that up. We had a little homework assignment, which was to ask each other questions blindfolded. And when I asked her what her biggest deal breaker is, she said a lack of confidence. And that's just one thing that I have an issue with. And Bennett, as intelligent as he is, he said, you know what? Confidence don't always mean the typical norm. Confidence is also based on, oh my God, I thought I wrote it down. But if you can go back and play that, he had an excellent answer for that. And it kind of gave Henry a different view of what the true meaning of confidence is, but I don't think it resonated with him deep enough, because he was like, yeah, but, that's just I have an issue with confidence. And he was like, yeah, okay, I get it. Bennett backed off. He said, but you do need to go talk to your wife. So he does get an opportunity to go back and talk to Christina. And, they, talked about, hey, she was like, well, where'd you go? And, oh, where are you at? And he said, I went out with Bennett. And what did you talk about? And he said, well, we talked about Dr. Viviana and our assignments and things like that. And she was like, anything else? And he was like, well, yeah, I did talk about our game. And one thing that bothered me is the fact that you said that lack of confidence is a deal breaker for you. What did you mean by that? Because I have an issue with confidence. And she was like, no, no, no. I meant myself. And I'm like, okay, are you backpedaling now? Or are you actually truly meaning that you didn't specifically mean him, but you were talking about yourself? And he was like, well, okay, okay. He kind of loosened up after he heard her say that. But the other thing, he was like, but I'm just not that type of person. And she was like, is there something that we don't know? No, no, there's nothing that we don't know that's keeping me from being open. And she was like, well, can you get there? And he was like, well, I don't know. It'll take my time. The bottom line is with these two, and I keep saying this, Dr. Pepper screwed up. She screwed up, and they should have never been together. So let's talk about our last couple, Brett and Olivia. And her cat and his cat was walking around the house making noises that even Dr. Viviana was like, am I hearing something? And it was interesting that she was saying that, Brett and Olivia said, oh, that's just the cats. And one of the cats jumped up on Dr. Viviana. And she was like, oh, how are the cats living together? And she was like, oh, they're making noise. They're bullying each other. I think Brett said her cat bullied his. And, they make a joke out of it. But this is another couple that, honestly, I think if they take both their barriers down, they could actually do something. But because they're both so stubborn and stuck in their own ways, it's just not there. So Dr. V asked them about, what are the biggest issues, and the living situation came up, and Olivia said it'll be easier if Brett didn't own his own house. And I'm like, really, Olivia? She also said that, why can't we just rent a house together? And I'm like, you got to be kidding. That's equity. Now, I don't know about the sarcasm that Brett used about the equity, but it's a way to build income. It's a way to build your assets. I mean, that's something that, people are definitely trying to do. And he accomplished that. Plus the house is paid off, because I remember him saying he's debt free. And for her to say, hey, give up the house, we need the rent, nah. I mean, that's just my thoughts. You guys let me know what you think. And that's why he was like, oh, stupid equity. I don't think the timing was right for the comment, but I do get where he's coming from. And then Dr. V was like, hey, there's no time for sarcasm right now. And he definitely was like, okay. So then she was like, well, what is the issue about the house? And it was like her commute is 30 to 35 minutes. There are people commuting over an hour. I mean, you guys need to figure it out. At least if you want him to move in with him eventually, which I doubt these two are going to work out. It's a situation where his house can be residual income and make, rent it out and make money from it. But she don't see that way. It's her way or no way. The issue of kids came up. He wants kids, and she was like, think about it. So I just don't think that these two are going to make it. And then this conversation at lunch, it really got crazy, because he was definitely low key. He was grounded, and she was asking questions. And she, one of the interesting things that she said was, I would say he said, because her perception is like insecurity or something going on with her. And, she said, hey, do you think we need to work on our problems? And he was like, yeah, we can work on them one day at a time. But you be looking at me sarcastically. Well, what does a sarcastic look? Well, I'll remind you when, I see you. You just make me feel like I'm dumb. I just want you to be genuine with me. One thing about Brett, he is brutally blunt. What comes up comes out. So I don't know what Olivia is looking for. I mean, granted, I do think he used the sarcasm as a defense mechanism. When he gets nervous or backed in the corner, sarcasm is his way out. But she needs to explore that part of it instead of being accusatory. And then, do you really want to be in this marriage? And he was like, I thought we addressed that already. And she was like, answer the question. And he was like, yeah. Well, I don't believe you. Okay, then why you ask him the question? And then he was like, she was like, okay, well, do you think our issues are resolved? And he was like, well, yeah, they're resolved. How? Well, there's no resolution to the problem of perception, he says. And I totally agree with that, because you cannot change how another person think of you. Only they can do that. You can be a perfect angel, and if that person just don't like you, in their eyes, they're going to see you the same way. So I totally get that. And if she sees him as, somebody that she's not comfortable with, she don't like the way he lives his life, things like that, or the agreement, she's never going to see him differently. And he's not going to be able to change that. And I guess I want to say, you can't change somebody who don't want to change. And at the same time, your perception is your perception. That doesn't mean that somebody else's perception of him is going to be exactly like yours. So I do get where he's coming from, but he's brutally blunt, and it can be offensive, and it can be rude. So I'm going to put that out there too, because honestly, these two nitpick each other. They throw darts at each other, and then they get mad. The thing is, Olivia really gets mad. Brett is like, you know what, I'm just going to shut down. I'm going to keep it is what it is. I'm going to put my statement out there, take it or leave it. But he still say things like, I like her smile. I actually think we can go somewhere. I don't see how, your lives are so vastly different. He's structured and organized and looks about building. She is living lavishly. She got the money. Nurse practitioners can make up to $500,000 a year. So, she makes the money. She wants to spend it. She wants the lifestyle. I understand both sides of this coin. What I don't understand is the fact that you two can blend this together, and neither one of them, they're at a standoff. So they finally go and decide to do this activity with making an alcoholic drink. And, for the most part, Brett is paying attention, and he'll say something off mark, and it just throws her off. So they were putting in the ingredients, and then she becomes competitive with him. Oh, yeah, I'm going to beat you. And listen, fun competitiveness is good when, both of you are on board. But if you're not in a good space, it's going to look defensive. Now, I can see competitiveness with Amelia and Bennett, and it goes well. And I can see it with Woody and Amani, and it goes well. But with Olivia and Brett, it becomes a standoff. And she said something, and he didn't like it, and he got quiet. Then when he clapped back with what he said, she got quiet. And they're just there, coexisting. He's following the instructions. My drink tastes better than yours, Olivia says. I'm just done with these two. I honestly thought, because she started off very sweet and bubbly, and, a lot of people, oh yeah, Brett is he's a tool. He's going to take advantage of her and things like that. I don't think he's a bad guy at all. I just think because he's so blunt and very straightforward in his speaking, a lot of people don't like that direct conversation, or that direct, and the way he come across can be rude, and Olivia's not used to that. But on Olivia's side of this thing is that she's stuck in her ways. She's very stubborn. It's my way or the highway. I need you to change for me in order for me to be happy. And Brett is the same way. Brett isn't really trying to change her. He's pretty much like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. Blunt, sarcasm, the whole bit. I am who I am. And Olivia she's not feeling this. I don't know. Maybe she would have been better with Henry and put Brett with Christina. Because I think those two, if you swap them out, I can guarantee you Brett would have took the lead that Christina wants. And that passiveness, Olivia, hey, he would have just go along to get along, meaning Henry. And she wouldn't be so impatient with him. So I don't know. I think these two probably were ill matched. But honestly, Brett and Olivia, I just, it's just not working. Unless something changed in the next 4 weeks, they're going to be saying a big fat no on decision day. So I'm going to rate this couple a 4. And I don't even know why I'm rating them a 4, because at this point, I mean, Brett is trying to hang in there and do what she likes and do what she want to do, even though his messaging is there, but I don't think this couple's going to make it. So let's do our post notification shout out. If you want to shout out, comment down below and I will shout you out. So the first shout out goes to Marianne. Thank you so much for engaging the channel. I see all your comments. Keep on posting. Bethany Mitchell, thank you for your engagement with the channel. I really appreciate it. And then last but not least, Jennifer D, thank you so much for engaging in the channel. We really appreciate it. So you guys, I see you guys watching. Feel free to subscribe and continue to get more content. And otherwise, we will see you next week.